It's Pipes Drums, and we are here with Liam Kernaghan. Liam is the brand new president of the Royal New Zealand Pipe Band Association. He's coming to us from Auckland, correct? Yes,
Correct.
Auckland. And Liam, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Andrew. It's great to be here.
You bet. Um, so, first of all, congratulations on your election as president of the Royal New Zealand Pipe Band Association. You're stepping into some big shoes with Ian Blakely, the long tenure and great service to the organization. Um, how does it feel to follow Ian?
I mean, it's an enormous privilege, and in any of these roles where you get the opportunity to give back, you sort of feel very grateful and you want to hit the ground running. But also, Ian, for context, Ian was the president for almost the entirety of my pipe band career, from when I started back in about 2004, 2005. He'd just joined the board and then became president. So he's all I and countless other New Zealanders have really known. So it's incredibly daunting. And I think for me, it's about honoring his legacy and recognizing the incredible contribution that he made over 20 years, but also taking, I think, some of the good things that he has done and put in motion, and then turbocharging that. And I know he is still very supportive of the association. He's still very supportive of what we're trying to achieve, and we're very much looking forward to having him around and using his knowledge and expertise for hopefully many, many years to come.
So, what are some of those things you're looking forward to continuing in Ian's path? Some things that he might have started under his tenure that you want to continue.
Well, so I think, over 20 years, there's so many things to list, but if I can pinpoint the things that I think have made, the most significant difference. I mean, first and foremost, I think Ian really brought us into the 21st century when it comes to pipe band associations and pipe band competition, and we're a much more outward looking, progressive, international focused pipe band community. And I think, over his time, we had our first world champion ship win in the juvenile with St Andrews College. We've had more and more bands go to Scotland for the World Pipe Band Championships and be successful. And so we very much want to continue the pathway and make sure that bands have the support and the opportunity to continue to perform well on the international stage. And I think that bodes well, not just for those bands, but the individuals inside them. He's also had an incredible focus on youth and bringing the next generation into the pipe band community, whether they're pipers or drummers or supporters. And he was instrumental in the setting up of the sort of second and third waves of the National Youth Pipe Band here in New Zealand, which has provided untold opportunity for so many of our up and coming players. And I think not only is it an avenue for them to hone their skills and make mates and learn from some of New Zealand's best and some of the world's best, but also it's an incredible promotional tool for us to try and inspire the next generation of Kiwis to be part of it. And I think in tandem with all of the work that he and the association have done to try and support bands right throughout the country to teach and to inspire, I think that's really critical because we are 12,000 miles away from Scotland. Piping and drumming isn't necessarily culturally normal in New Zealand. It's not something you see a lot of. And so we have to work really hard to try and get into communities and try and inspire the next generation to take up the pipes and drums. So for me, it's about continuing some of that stuff that he's done and promoting New Zealand, I think, to the world and supporting our bands to succeed on the world stage, and also ensuring that that next generation comes through. Because for us, if we don't have younger players coming through quite regularly, and if we don't have a new influx of players at the likes of the summer schools that we run, we do run the risk of slowly dying out. And so it's something that we're keenly focused on, and I know that we're really super focused on ensuring that that continues to happen.
Yeah, it seems like there's a common thread, with a lot of what you're talking about. I mean, you yourself are 34 years old, which is very young on all levels. But especially when it comes to, relatively speaking, association leaders who tend to be, and no fault of their own, obviously. It's great that they step up, but tend to be, 50 years plus, and some well into their 70s, looking after things. And not only that, but you're a current competitor, and an adjudicator. So all those things combined make you sort of exceptional. And we'll talk about this in the second part too. But this trend of looking after youth and going forward and welcoming younger people into it, both at playing and leadership level. Maybe comment on that a little more. Is that something that is intrinsic to New Zealand?
Yeah, it's interesting, and we've sort of been watching keenly some of the reporting from the UK. I think maybe last week or the week before, where they were saying pipes are dying out, and it's a dying sort of hobby or instrument, and we sort of laughed to ourselves because nothing could be further from the truth here, and whether it's what the association's done or whether it's in large part due to some of the amazing teaching that's going on, we are genuinely seeing so many new kids and new learners coming through the system, whether it's through some of the big programs or through some of our community bands in the far-flung regions in New Zealand. And so, for instance, at our summer school, we had almost 130 students, which is the biggest we've had in the North Island for quite some time. But the really cool thing was, I think 60 or 65% of those that were attending were totally new. They'd never been to a summer school before. And so for us, it's incredibly heartening to see some of those new faces come through. We want to really encourage that. And if anything, in New Zealand, piping and drumming is going through a real renaissance and has been for some time. So that is really exciting from kind of one perspective of how we kind of keep the movement going. But I think when it comes to young youth leadership in New Zealand, I'm probably not an enigma in New Zealand. We do tend to have, people who have, had the incredible privilege of having, so many great opportunities in piping and drumming kind of step up when it's time. We are a smaller community. There are fewer of us in New Zealand, and so when it's our time to make a contribution, I think we do. And as I say, I'm not any different. For a long time, the likes of Greg Wilson and Richard Hawke and Brendan Eade and now Stuart Easton, Willie Rowe, myself, and countless others who I won't name, but and because I would just keep going. But I think we all feel there is a responsibility that we have to give back in some way, shape, and form. And the RNZPBA has never been particularly different in that regard. Ian himself was in his mid 30s, I think, when he took over as president. And I don't think he was much older than I was when he did 20 or so years ago. We've had the likes of Stu McHale also joined the board recently in the last 4 years, and he's also in his 30s. And so I think it's reasonably normal in New Zealand. And as I say, I think part of that is the responsibility that I think we feel because of the opportunities that we've had, but we also are a smaller community. And so we do muck in, and it's probably just part of our Kiwi attitude that we just dig in and give it a go when it's our time.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. It's it seems to be kind of a cultural thing, maybe with the ethic of pipers and drummers there and getting together and collaborating and working together in a positive kind of way. That we don't necessarily see in some jurisdictions, and that is changing too. We'd like to think that New Zealand would be an inspiration for some. So why don't we wrap that up, part one there, and return in part two, and we'll talk about maybe your particular philosophy of leadership and what your vision for the Royal New Zealand Pipe Band Association. So stay tuned for part two with Liam Kernaghan.